Hey guys, so I've done quite a few book reviews on here, but today what I'm getting into is, sorry I'm fidgeting so much, not that different, but a little, it's a different experience, a board game review. So, we love something topical. If you're watching this sometime in the future and don't know, this is being filmed while we are currently in a pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. So I thought, while we're all stuck at home, why not get a new board game for me and my boyfriend to play? Why not get Pandemic? It's a little cheesy, I'll admit it. So, I've played this game before. I'm well versed. I played this game for the first time in college. Freshman year of college, I had this group of friends and we would all get together and play Pandemic pretty frequently, like probably at least once a week. We all lived in the dorm, so we would just meet downstairs in like the common area and play. I can't take credit for this. It was their thing first. We were roommates after that, and I can 100% say I loved the game. They introduced me to it. I was not the pioneer in this whatsoever, but I do still enjoy playing, even many years after that. So I recently purchased this, which is the 10th anniversary edition, which also tells you it's been around. It's nothing new. Most of you probably are already pretty familiar with it, but if you're not, then let me tell you, you should be. So this edition is quite expensive. I think it was close to $100. But if you are not that into buying like special fancy editions, I think the regular is only like $40. So lots of great replayability. It's not one of those games that you buy, you play it once, and then you never play it again. So I do think it's worth it. I got this edition primarily because I already knew I liked it. I wasn't going into it blind, buying the fancy edition. And I've mentioned this before with books. Whenever I buy like old classical literature, I like to try to find cool editions that have really kind of put their own unique spin on it, rather than just buying the like mass market basic. They are cheaper, but I'd rather spend a little bit more and have it be a bit of an investment rather than just buying the cheapest thing I can find. So this is similar idea to that. I bought this fancy one knowing that it's something I plan on keeping for a long time. That is a little bit more of an investment in something that I know I love. So it is neat. This is actually like a metal briefcase type of situation. It opens like a briefcase. So it's really it's neat, it's novel. I wouldn't have necessarily wanted to spend this much on it if it wasn't functional and it was just for looks. So you can see these little clasps actually clasp, and that's how you shut it. I'm not going to open it because I have to take this off. I don't think you necessarily need to keep it, but I like to, I don't like to throw this stuff away, because this has like all the pieces on the back and kind of the description, and it's also the little 10th anniversary edition. Like this whole thing is removable. You can toss it if you want. Like I said, I'd rather keep it on there, so I'm not going to open it up. But, so, premise of the game. It is basically this, not even alternate world, it's just a map of the world, like our world, with our cities and all of that. And you have these diseases that start in different locations. You can tweak things to make it easier or harder. I usually just play by the standard rule set. Occasionally tweak it to make it more difficult if I'm really wanting a challenge, but honestly it's kind of difficult to win anyway a lot of times. There's some element of luck to it, but there's also a lot of strategy. There are different players that you can play as. It's technically supposed to be random. I tend to have my friends just choose whoever they want to be because we know the abilities, and it's kind of fun to strategize with different combinations of the types of players. So they each have unique abilities. I enjoy mixing and matching the abilities to see like if it's easier or more difficult to then win, and it kind of keeps things fresh without it all being up to chance on that. It gives you a little bit of control over your experience once you know who the players are. It's for 2 to 4 people, so perfect for if you're quarantined with just your family, you don't have a ton of people to come over. Some games just don't work that well when there aren't that many people, which is frustrating to me because I love playing board games, but it is so difficult at times to get a lot of people together with like a free schedule who can come over and have like a true board game night. So this is a great option if that's something you struggle with. If you're busy, your friends are busy, you know, life's busy sometimes. So there essentially is 4 strains of a disease. They get placed randomly across the board based on the cards you draw, and then each turn you have cards in your hand that represent different cities and different like special one-use abilities, and every turn you also draw more cities that get infected with disease. The biggest mechanics are that if there are 3 disease cube blocks in a city and you're supposed to add another, then there is like an outbreak, which means that every city touching that initial city then becomes infected. So things always seem like they're under control, and then all of a sudden you start getting outbreaks and it just gets crazy all over the place, and it can be really hard to bounce back once an area gets out of control if you weren't ready for it. So the way you win the game is by curing all 4 diseases. You can cure them by, if you have 5 city cards in your hand of the same color, which each color represents a strain, then you can go to a research center and you can cure that strain. If you then get rid of all the cubes completely, which the cubes represent the disease, then it's like eradicated and no more will appear. Otherwise they'll keep appearing, but it's easier to clear out. It's easier to clear out once you have the cure. So that's the basic gist of it. I'm sorry if that's hard to follow, someone just talking about it. But the point of that is gameplay is not what I'm doing right now. I can if people want that, but I think there are a lot of wonderful channels on YouTube that do gameplay tutorials. So if you really want to understand how the game works, then I really recommend just searching it on YouTube and finding a channel that does a full gameplay walkthrough, because that will tell you everything you need to know about the mechanics, the board setup, how it really works. I'm here more to say that if you are considering this game, if it is, or even if you're not, if you are just looking for something to do, you're stuck at home, you're like, I need something interactive to do that is not watch TV, that is not a solo act like reading, I need something to interact with my family and I don't want technology, get this. And I would even say, if you're unsure, you don't really feel like looking up the gameplay, this is one that I'm so confident in. I would tell anybody to purchase this game regardless. It is wonderful to have around. You can pull it out if you have guests over. It is just a good quality game. So, oh, something else to mention. Some games are confusing, which I may have confused you myself about this game, talking about the gameplay, and if I did, then I apologize. But this game is not difficult to figure out. The instruction manual is only a few pages. You don't have to spend 2 hours figuring out what the heck is even happening before you can play it. There are a lot of games like that, and they may be wonderful games, but they're not necessarily friendly to people who are new to that type of game. If there are a lot of mechanics to learn, if there's just a lot happening, this isn't one of those games. This game is very easy to pick up, the concepts are simple, but yet it still presents a good challenge, which is why I love it so much. It will challenge you and make you really think and like engage which is what I personally want from a board game. It's something that keeps me engaged without feeling stressful in like a bad way, and without making you feel like you have to do research before playing, or you're gonna have to constantly consult the manual on how to do it. It's once you figure it out, which doesn't take long, you can just cruise right through it with no problems. So I think that is a hard to reach balance in games. It's difficult to have a game that's complex enough that it's challenging and engaging, but simple enough that you don't feel like you need to study before playing it. So Pandemic really hits the nail on the head with this. It is the perfect mix of like intelligent but also carefree and fun. So I would give it a solid 10 out of 10, honestly. It is one of my favorite games I've played. I have a few other games that I feel very strongly about, like positively, but Pandemic is definitely at the top of that list. It's probably first or second all time as far as board games go for me, and I am a big board game fan. I used to have board game nights with my coworkers every single week, where we'd play different ones. So I would love to pick that back up after quarantine, but I doubt there are many games that could change my mind about Pandemic being at the top. So if you considered it, or if you just stumbled upon this and you're like, wait, I might want to do something that's not just watching more Netflix, highly recommend checking it out. I'll leave a link to it below. I'll try to link this edition if I can. I purchased this from a local game shop. I almost always try to purchase books, board games, things of that nature from local shops, but sometimes that just doesn't make the most sense, especially with quarantine when half of them aren't even open. So I will leave the Amazon link below for either this edition or just the regular one, or both if I can find them, because they're very different price points. And yeah, I highly recommend checking out this game if you're wanting a little interaction without the technology. So 2 thumbs up on that one for sure, and I will talk to you guys later.